This is a Fox News alert. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. One of the escaped killers from a maximum security prison in New York is dead tonight. The other is said to be on the run. This happens at the end of the third week in the hunt for the two men. Senior correspondent Rick Leventhal is live right now in Malone, New York with an update. Hello, Rick.
Hey, Shannon, we're roughly 2 miles from the scene where this all went down. About 3:45 this afternoon, the New York State Police tells us law enforcement spotted a man in a wooded area in the town of Malone. As you see, more state police now heading down the road towards the direction of where this gunfire took place. We're told that it was an intersection here along Highway 30 and Route 41, close to a cabin where the New York State Police told us they, in fact, found more evidence indicating both the escaped convicts were in this area. Richard Matt, David Sweat have been on the run, as you mentioned, for 21 days now. The New York State Police says a member of law enforcement shot and killed a man believed to be the Clinton Correctional Facility escapee Richard Matt. I have confirmed that with a high-ranking law enforcement source that, in fact, Richard Matt was shot and killed this afternoon. Fox News has also confirmed that it was a Customs and Border Patrol agent who fired the shots killing Matt. It may, in fact, have been a Border Patrol tactical team. We have video of a team, we believe, getting out of a Customs helicopter earlier today in a search about 40 miles south of here. It's just a demonstration of how quickly these guys can swoop in and move into a scene once a sighting is reported. We have, as I mentioned, seen dozens of police, Customs vehicles, and other law enforcement racing past our position here on Highway 30 toward that scene, where we're now told a pursuit is underway for the second suspect, David Sweat. We also just saw a convoy of light trucks roll by, suggesting that they are preparing for this search and investigation to go well into the night. There are some 1,100 members of law enforcement from local, county, state, and federal agencies involved in this search. Earlier this afternoon, the New York State Police confirmed that there were, in addition to that hunting cabin where they found DNA evidence of both suspects last Saturday, they confirmed there were 2 additional locations here in Monroe where they found evidence suggesting that these 2 men were, in fact, in this area. They wouldn't specify what they found, but they said there was a confirmed link to both men. So that was this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Less than 3 hours later, we have gunshots reported and now confirmation that Richard Matt, one of the 2 escaped convicts, was shot and killed in the town of Malone. And again, we are told that police have circled an area where they believe David Sweat is now pinned down. And again, Shannon, both these men were believed to be armed and obviously extremely dangerous, since both are convicted killers. So they are taking this very, very seriously. David Sweat apparently within their sights.
All right, Rick Leventhal live there on the scene. We will check back with you as this continues to develop. Thank you, Rick. All right, let's talk more about what is going on now. Joining me now, former Washington, D.C. police homicide detective Rod Wheeler. Rod, thanks so much for joining us tonight. What do you make of this situation, and now that we assume the one remaining individual, David Sweat, is still alive, and it looks like authorities are closing in?
That's right, Shannon. Earlier today, which is really interesting, the police authorities up there in upstate New York put out an alert, alerting the authorities, alerting the Border Patrol, Customs Border Protection, that these 2 individuals may be headed towards Canada. So I think it's very interesting how it sounds like it was a CBP officer who confronted this individual and who actually took him out. Now, the other individual, from what my sources are telling me, that the police dogs, the sniffer dogs, the K9 dogs, have picked up a strong scent in that area, and they know that he is underground. So right now, Shannon, this is considered a ground pursuit. They do have helicopters in the area, but there's enough officers in that area now, nearly 1,000 officers, that has formed a dragnet in a 5-mile radius in that area where the shooting took place this afternoon, and they know that they're closing in on David Sweat. And I'll tell you, Shannon, it's just a matter of hours, if that long, before they find this guy.
Well, of course, these are 2 convicted killers. They had extremely long sentences that they were facing. They made the break and apparently didn't have much of a plan past that, maybe because the prison worker who has been accused of helping them didn't show up for the getaway plan. But do you think at this point that these 2 individuals, who having risked everything, would rather go down in a gunfight than return to prison? I mean, one gone, one still on the run. Do you think that's how this ends?
Absolutely, and I can tell you that law enforcement authorities up there, meaning the U.S. Marshals and the FBI, they've known and believed all along, Shannon, that these 2 individuals will want to go out in a blaze. Now, why do I say that? Because we do have information that they broke into a couple of cabins up in that area, not too far, Shannon, from where the prison is located. And from what some of my sources are telling me, it's a possibility that some weapons were stolen from those cabins. And so as a result of that, they believe these individuals, and this individual now, David Sweat, the remaining one, is armed and definitely dangerous and desperate. And he's not going to want to go back to prison. So he's going to do everything he can, Shannon, to try to stay out.
And essentially at this point probably has nothing left to lose. All right, former detective Rod Wheeler, thank you, sir, for your time.
Sure. Thank you, Shannon.
All right, our other big story tonight, an historic ruling by the nation's highest court. President Obama described it as justice arriving like a thunderbolt. The 5-4 decision making same-sex marriage legal everywhere, and supporters were dancing in the streets as one dissenting Supreme Court justice warned of a court that is now a threat to American democracy. In a sweeping 5-4 opinion authored by Justice Anthony Kennedy, the Supreme Court declared same-sex marriage the law of the land, finding a fundamental constitutional right for same-sex couples to marry in all 50 states.
It's my hope that the term gay marriage will soon be a thing of the past, that from this day forward, it will simply be marriage.
Justice Kennedy wrote, quote, under the Constitution, same-sex couples seek in marriage the same legal treatment as opposite-sex couples, and it would disparage their choices and diminish their personhood to deny them this right.
This ruling will strengthen all of our communities by offering to all loving same-sex couples the dignity of marriage across this great land.
All 4 dissenting justices authored their own opinions, including Chief Justice John Roberts. Quote, the majority's decision is an act of will, not legal judgment. The right it announces has no basis in the Constitution or this court's precedent, adding, just who do we think we are? As a senator, Democrat Hillary Clinton defended the traditional definition of marriage, but today the 26th contender lauded the landmark victory and praised the LGBT community for changing hearts on the issue. The 2016 GOP field roundly denounced the ruling and voiced concerns about protections for those with religious objections to same-sex marriage, despite Justice Kennedy's emphasis on First Amendment protections for, quote, religious organizations and persons. In his dissent, Justice Samuel Alito suggested today's ruling leaves traditional marriage supporters in a tenuous position. Quote, I assume that those who cling to old beliefs will be able to whisper their thoughts in the recesses of their homes. But if they repeat those views in public, they will risk being labeled as bigots and treated as such by governments, employers, and schools.
One of the cornerstones of the Constitution is the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the right of conscience of all Americans. And we're hopeful that that cornerstone, notwithstanding today's decision, remains.
The Archdiocese of Washington issued a statement today saying the court's decision will not change its definition of marriage as between one woman and one man, yet acknowledged the Catholic Church will soon face a situation in which its teaching and practices, quote, may be perceived to conflict with civil law. Critics have warned that a ruling in favor of same-sex marriage may open the door to other arrangements like polygamy. That's actually something the Chief Justice noted in his lengthy dissent today. Likely knowing that would come up in his majority opinion, Justice Kennedy said this case is only about 2 consenting adults. We'll talk about it with the panel coming up. President Obama gave the eulogy this afternoon for the pastor of the church that was attacked last week during a Bible study. 9 people were massacred. The suspect is in custody, and today the dead were remembered. Correspondent Jonathan Seri is in Charleston, South Carolina tonight.
The leader of an historic African-American church, eulogized by America's first black president, Barack Obama called on society to use last week's tragedy as a catalyst to address uncomfortable social issues ranging from the Confederate flag to gun violence.
But it would be a betrayal of everything Reverend Pinckney stood for, I believe, if we allowed ourselves to slip into a comfortable silence again.
You're right. Ordained at the age of 18, Reverend Clemente Pinckney also started early in politics. Earlier this week, his casket went on display in the South Carolina Capitol, where he began serving as a state representative at the age of 23 and 4 years later as a state senator, a position he held until his untimely death at the age of 41. Pinckney and 8 other members of Emmanuel AME Church were fatally shot during a June 17 Bible study. Investigators believe the alleged gunman, 21-year-old Dylan Roof, acted alone, motivated by extreme white supremacist views. Speaking at an earlier funeral for the church's assistant pastor, Sharonda Coleman Singleton, South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley commended the victim's family on their ability to show forgiveness in the face of devastating cruelty.
your mother, don't ever forget, taught our state and our country about what real love looks like.
The suspect's family has issued a brief statement through an attorney saying they'll answer questions after allowing the victim's family time to grieve. The funeral for Reverend Pinckney attracted overflow crowds. At one point, the line outside TD Arena extended for a mile, prompting city officials to open 5 remote viewing locations, and some of those filled to capacity. Beyond the president's visit, security has been tight at the funerals for the other victims, one of them taking place in the church behind me right now. Tensions are still high after the gunman disrupted the sanctity but not the spirit of this historic Charleston church. Shannon?
Jonathan Sari live in Charleston. Thank you. And we are still all over the search for that second escaped killer in upstate New York. The first, Richard Matt, was killed by federal authorities earlier this afternoon. Roads have been blocked off, and we will keep you posted all along the way. Also, terror overseas. 3 deadly strikes today. Dozens have been killed. We'll have reports from Jerusalem and London. Stay with us.